Excellent. All right. Okay, thank you. We have Mr. Ali Safavi he's a global sales advisor from Sotheby's International Realty. Thanks so much for being here today.
So exciting, Nicole, to be here. Such an honor and pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Terrific, terrific. Okay, so we have an amazing PUC Schools audience watching this convo. And I want to just start out with just hearing about what do you actually do and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so what I do is I wear multiple hats in real estate. And by the way, when you are in real estate, I read somewhere there's at least 100 different ways to do real estate. So that's an important point to sort of emphasize, because there's so many different things you can do in real estate. But for me, what I do is I develop property. And it's interesting that I'm actually standing in front of one of my development projects. So I think that's kind of fitting. And development in English basically means that you take something really ugly and old and you make it really beautiful. And so that's a huge process, but development is one thing I do. The other is I buy and sell property, and I do it for myself and I do it for other people. So those are kind of the three main things I do. And then the last piece, or the fourth thing, is I manage our rental properties. And so what that also means is that you take care of the tenants, you make sure that the buildings are running smoothly and there are no hiccups, even though there are always hiccups. But those are the main things that I do. And then I guess your other question about how I got into real estate, that's a longer story. I'll make it shorter. When I was 7 years old, my dad, who was an engineer and a builder and a developer and a contractor, he wore multiple hats. He basically put a hard hat on me when I was 7 years old, and I would walk through the buildings or the homes that he would build. And it was just like a normal thing. And I didn't know any better. I was just following him and listening to the conversations, and it basically just kind of grew on me, and it's always been in my blood. His father did the same thing, and I teach my son and my daughter the same thing. So real estate is very much in our blood.
And Ali, when it comes to, you talk about being 7, just to give a little context to our kids, did you do this in California, and then did you go to college for this? Like, what did your career journey look like? Was it always been straight to real estate?
No, actually, great question, Nicole. So I grew up in LA, and I went to school here in Santa Monica, and then I graduated from high school here in Santa Monica, and then I went to UCLA. And then graduating from UCLA, I got a bachelor's in sociology, of all things. And sociology is kind of a general degree where you learn about societies and how people and groups interact with each other. So it's a very kind of, an applicable or a relevant degree for any kind of career you want to pursue, in my opinion. And then from there, I went to law school and business school at the University of Tennessee. I'm always wearing my Tennessee clothes. Nicole knows that very well. And when I was in law school and business school, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, but that took a turn because I clerked for a judge and I didn't like the experience. And so I really leaned on the MBA, which is the business administration degree, the master's in business administration degree. And I did an internship at Sara Lee. I did another internship at Hewlett Packard. Then I worked for a company called Procter & Gamble, working on the Febreze brand. I have more useless facts about Febreze than most people do. And then my last year at P&G, I did this huge deal with the Walt Disney Company. And Disney was basically kind of recruiting me out of P&G. And so I left P&G and I worked for Disney in their international department for 7 years. And name a country, I've probably been there twice. And after Disney, I decided to retire from that and pursue real estate full time. So I guess in a long way, yes, real estate's been in my blood, but it took me, at least 10 plus years being in corporate America to eventually step into real estate full time.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important that students understand that out the gate, you might be thinking you're doing one thing and things change through experiences and just through life in general. And so it's all led you back to real estate.
Exactly.
Excellent. When it comes to your position in real estate, is there a required education training for your position? I know you said sociology, UCLA, you have your JD MBA, which is a law degree and a business degree. What's necessary to even get into real estate?
So it depends on the area of real estate you want to go into. The most common is being a realtor, which is a real estate salesperson, which is required to have a license. And to have a license, you need to go through training. There's 3 specific training modules that you need to take. And those training modules are basically standard across any state that you decide to transact in or decide to do deals in. And then of course you sit for the exam. And then once you sit for the exam, they literally hand you your license. And then from there, you go work for one of these big brokerages. I decided to go work for Safavi, which is the world's largest real estate company. You don't have to work for the biggest and, in my opinion, the best. But you could go to any real estate firm that will what they call sponsor you, because what happens is as a real estate salesperson, you work under a real estate broker, which is the person in the office who's managing all the realtors, and you basically get hands-on training when you're a realtor. So to answer your question, yes, there's license requirements, there's education requirements, but on top of that, I would say that getting a bachelor's degree and ultimately a graduate degree is only going to help you in a career in real estate, because it does a couple of things. It gives you more credibility when you're in that space, meaning when you're in real estate and doing deals, you exude more credibility with your clients, with your colleagues. And then secondly, it also gives you something to fall back on in the hopefully unlikely event that you don't want to pursue real estate full time.
Thank you so much. When it comes to someone who might be new in the field, what can they expect starting out? And would that really depend? I know you broke down real estate into a lot of different positions, so it's kind of a hard question for me to throw at you with all that you shared. But if someone was new wanting to pursue this, what could they expect?
So first of all, I don't think the industry does a good job managing and setting expectations with new people. I really don't. I'm just leveling with you. I think, there's all these amazing shows out there, $1 million real estate, or, flip this and flip that. And, what people see is the sort of Hollywoodized version that realtors are dressed in these tight fit, Italian suits, and they're driving Ferraris, and everything is just like, hunky dory, and everything is fun. And, we could do a whole other session about all the times that I failed, all the times that I did the wrong thing, or I was, bad things happened to me, etc. But I think to go back to your question of what they can expect is a lot of hard work. And, it's what I always tell people is that it's simple, but it's not easy. And so that's a big distinction. What I mean by that is that the concepts are very straightforward. The principles, the rules are very straightforward. They're very black and white, in fact. But the process, the actual work, is not easy. There is a lot of work. There's a lot of late nights. There's a lot of mornings. Just the other day, I took my kids skiing, and somebody asked me, "Oh, are you off today or something from work?" And I just said, "We're actually never off." We're always on. There's no really business hours because there's nobody really looking over your shoulder to see if you're putting in the hours. You are accountable for your own success. So in summary, lots of work, lots of long nights. You will likely experience failure before you achieve success, and you have to put in the work.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that being said, lots of work. Tell me what's your favorite thing about the job and what's the worst part of the job?
The favorite thing about the job is going to sound cliche and overused, but there are really no 2 days that are similar. And if you can genuinely say that about any job, I think that's inherently exciting. When I genuinely, objectively, factually mean there are no 2 days that are similar. So when I wake up in the morning, I jump out of bed because I can't wait to start my day, because there's always what I call a Costco moment. What I mean by that is, like if you're going into Costco, I'm a big Costco fan. You're like going down the aisles. There's always something in Costco that you think is really cool, but you didn't expect to be there, right? And so you, like me, if you're like me, you put it in your cart. There's a Costco moment every day in real estate. And that's by far my favorite. What's not my favorite is dealing with challenging people or rude people. I just closed the deal, I don't know, 3-4 days ago. And the other side, meaning the other side of the transaction, who I was representing the seller, the folks representing the buyer, are just really rude people. I mean, if I showed you some of their emails, you're like, you can't believe they would say things like that. But that's I would say that's in any industry. You'll find rude and difficult people. It probably makes you stronger and better, but that's probably the thing I dislike the most in this business.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, I think you raise a great point. It's going to be in every business, difficult or rude people, and it depends how you process it, and how you process it with it making you stronger, I think is a lens that you use that also leads to success.
Agreed. Yeah, I have the 10-minute rule. So what I do is, if I'm still feeling the same way after 10 minutes, I'll send the response that I want to send. But if I don't, it'll be a more kind of a neutral response. And it worked. I was driving home and I really just wanted to pull over and get my iPhone out and just respond the way I wanted to respond. But I waited 10 minutes and I took a few deep breaths and I was like, you know what? That's fine. This is the message that I will respond back with. And it turned out to be okay. And by the way, the one thing I'll say in real estate and in life, usually the anticipation of the event is worse than the event itself. And so what I mean by that is, whatever you're feeling anxious or nervous about with something coming up in work or in life, that event usually is not that bad, actually. It's just the anticipation of it might be. So
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good piece of words of wisdom, I'd say. When it comes to real estate, what is the projected industry or outlook like in terms of job growth? What do you have to share about that?
So I'm more of a dinosaur when it comes to my outlook on it, because I feel like with all these emerging technologies and how the world is changing so fast, ultimately people still need a roof over their head. And as far as I'm concerned, they're not building any more land. And so real estate is here to stay. It's been here for thousands of years. I do feel like the outlook is very strong and promising. Now, within the industry, like any industry, there are ups and downs. And so the one thing that in your training, in your experience, that you'll have to be wary of is how do you deal with the ups and downs? And by the way, dealing with the ups is as important, if not more important, than dealing with the downs. I've seen people in this industry not deal with success. And so, people say, well, how am I going to deal with failure? But how are you going to deal with success when you are successful? And what I mean by that is, and not to open up another can of worms, but we call it chunk money. So what that means is when you close a deal, it could be pretty lucrative, right? And so you get this pretty, call it fat check that comes your way. And I've seen people, particularly people who maybe have not experienced that before, don't come from necessarily means, they kind of just blow it on silly stuff, as I say, and so they don't really know how to deal with that success. So that's another important component with this industry. It's like, just the highs are higher and the lows are lower. So you got to be able to be kind of like a duck. If you think about what a duck looks like on a pond or a lake, the duck on top of the pond is very calm, cool, collected, but underneath the water, it's, kicking its legs really fast, really fast, really fast. And so behind the scenes, you could be doing a lot of that leg work, but above the scenes, you're just very calm, cool, and collected.
I like that. Thank you. When it comes to you or your organization hiring a candidate, what characteristics or traits are you looking for or experience? What can you share when you look for someone that you'd want to take on?
So when I had, our kids are a little bit older, but when they were super young, we would buy them a toy from, let's say, Target. And you bring that toy home, and you open up the package, and they're so excited to play with that toy. And then, oh my goodness, there's no batteries in that toy. What a bummer. Then you have to go back to Target or CVS and go buy batteries or scramble in your home to find those batteries. And so the first thing that I love when I look at a team member is that person come with batteries included. And it's just a really important point because there's a baseline or a basic level of skill set that you look, and that deals with competence, intelligence, basic training. So number one is batteries included. Number two is, are they collaborative? So it turns out, and a lot of people won't say this, but you will remain at a job or in an industry or at a company because you're well liked. I mean, people are not going to admit that, but I was at Disney for 7+ years, and every 3 months there were reorgs, meaning there were folks that were getting laid off and et cetera. And I just asked the senior manager one day, how come I haven't been on that list? And she said, Ali, because people like you. It's very simple. And, it just kind of dawned on me. So the second thing is, are you collaborative? Are you well liked? And then the third point is, do you go out of your way to help other people when you have nothing to gain? And that's a little bit more than collaboration. That's just a sixth sense that you may have that you want to give back. And it's part of your DNA. It's not something that you're doing because you're incentivized. Those are the three elements that I would look for.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know we always have students, and as educators in PUC, we're trying to help kids build those skills, not just in the classroom, but in life, that make them a more competitive candidate when they go out and start really adulting, go into the real world. So those are really helpful characteristics that you shared. Thank you.
Absolutely.
When it comes to, if we had a time machine and we could send you back to your high school self, what would you tell yourself career-wise if you could go back in time to Ali in 9th grade?
Well, Ali in 9th grade, believe it or not, was a mischievous kid. So let's get that out on the table. I hear stories from my mom how she was just pulling out her hair because I was just always getting in trouble. Uh, so, get not get in trouble as much. I know that that sounds funny, but that would be one thing. But on a more serious note, like I said, I've had real estate in my blood since as long as I could remember. But I didn't really formalize it until, call it, my early 30s, and so what I probably would have done is the very second that I'm legally allowed to get a real estate license, I would have done it. And it's hard, hindsight is 2020, but I would, in high school, get my real estate license. Now, if I wanted to do real estate, great. If I didn't want to, great. But it just gave me another avenue or another option to do so.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. Good piece of advice. And some of our students have the opportunity to do that through Los Angeles Community College system. So that's wonderful that you're sharing that. So we've got your background, we've got your career journey, which is really interesting and helpful for kids to know that they don't have to start out the gate knowing what they want to do when they grow up, but like learn as you go and figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Is there any additional tips or advice that you'd have for anyone that's pursuing real estate? What would you tell them to maybe look into or investigate to help kind of get some more clarity on the industry or on becoming a part of the community of realtors? Or
yeah, I there's a few things, and I'll try not to bore you with them. I'll try to be brief with them, but the first thing I would say is that a very quick story. My very first job was scooping ice cream at Haagen-Dazs, and I probably told you the story, but my general manager, we opened up the store at 11 a.m. So he came in at, I think it was like 10:45 one morning, and he said, "Hey, Ali, you must have been really busy this morning." And I said, "I actually know, Cameron. I just, I've been here and we haven't even opened up the store." He goes, I know, you should have been really busy, right? Aren't you really busy?" I said, no. Like I said, no one's come through, and it's dead. No one really eats ice cream at 11 o'clock in the morning anyways. I have no idea why we opened that early. And he said, "I know, you should have been really busy." And I said, "Well, no, I'm not really busy." He goes, "No, you should have been really busy cleaning up the store, restocking the ice cream, making sure that everything is set so that when the inevitable rush comes in, you're prepared." And so what did I learn at age 16, other than Haagen-Dazs ice cream is super tasty? I learned that be busiest when it's slow. So that's one thing, that's a mantra that I have in my mind: be busiest when it's slow. So that will help you in real estate, because there's a lot of times in this industry, whether it's around Christmas or it's around another holiday, that it's just naturally slower. But that you could use that time to work on your business, not in your business, which means you can work on a strategic plan on how are you going to grow your business and really think big picture about what the next step is for you, and plan accordingly. So that's what I would tell you. The other quick thing I would say is that it's always great to do an unpaid internship for a realtor or a real estate company, just so you can kind of be in the environment, right? And just be aware of some of the things that go on in the office and in the industry. I think that can only help you. And by the way, it also helps from a resume standpoint. So those are a couple of quick things that I would say you could do to help elevate your career or your standing in real estate.
excellent. Well, you have been a wealth of knowledge, and your story has been very exciting to hear. I thank you so much for your time today and for your willingness to share with PUC students. I hope you have a great evening, and thank you again for giving your time and your story and your expertise. It's been an honor.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Title, where I work, and a bit of background. And again, I'm very honored to be asked to help participate in these interviews and give some perspective. And hopefully it's worth something to folks. I had a lot of folks who helped me when I was younger, and so very excited to do it. My name is Brent Steele. My title is Chief Investment Officer, and I work for a company called Logistics Property Company, which is a privately owned U.S. national company that does development for basically what are called logistics facilities, but more commonly are the warehouses where all of the goods and products and e-commerce that you see through Amazon take place. So what did I want to be in high school? Great question. I would honestly say I did not know what I wanted to be in high school. I was very, my father was a doctor, and so he always stressed the importance of education in the sense that just give yourself options. Obviously, if you want to become a doctor, it's incredibly rigorous, it's challenging. I would tell you, I knew very early on I did not want to be a doctor. Nothing against the doctor field, it didn't light the fire within me the way that I think it needs to in order for folks to dedicate the time and the efforts and the commitment that's really necessary. So it's a little bit of a cop out, but I knew I wanted to go into business. Now that could mean so many different things to so many different people, and I didn't really know exactly what that meant to me. So I would say in high school, I started to ask a lot of questions, knowing I still didn't know anything. I still don't think I know anything, but I knew that the best way to ascertain at least some guidance or some understanding of what the options were out there in the world was to meet with people. And I will say one thing I give myself credit for is being very proactive in trying to network and reach out to people who maybe people I didn't even know, but people I read about, people who I heard about, and just trying to reach out to connect with that person to just ask them in a very kind, non-imposing way. Do you mind if I spend some time with you? Can I have some coffee with you, or can we just go sit somewhere for 20 minutes? I'm young. I'm just trying to understand what you do and what the world is of what you do and how you got there. And so similar to how we're conducting these interviews to give guidance on ideas, I obviously I'm a little older and didn't have the benefit of the internet when I was in high school. So did it basically firsthand by going to just reach out to people, again, who I may have seen or heard about or read about, and anyone who was willing to spend a little time with me, and I could ask them questions about what it is that you do and what does that mean and what's your life like and why do you like it. So that was all very helpful in at least knowing, okay, business, but then what does that mean within business? Because there's so many different areas. There's finance, there's marketing, there's negotiations, there's sales, there's so many things that I really had a very wide funnel, and I knew I had to start peeling that down. But in high school, I took a very broad approach to it to understand it and start understanding, well, what gets my fire going? What's exciting to me? Where do I meet with certain people and feel like, hey, that sounds like something that I relate to, or the ambition that drove that person, or the aspects of a certain day-to-day job that they talk about sounds interesting to me. And it was really just almost like a trial and error type process to try to absorb as much information as I could. So the origin and background of my career journey and sort of the timeline to where I am today is probably going to be pretty appear to be pretty scattered, but there's a little method to the madness, and I'll be honest. So when I graduated college, I still was a little bit not completely focused on knowing exactly what I wanted to do, and I would say that was okay. People had said that's fine. You've got time, you've got youth, but don't waste it if you're not actually being serious about learning things and at least trying to shorten your list. But it's okay. You don't need to feel the pressure that you know exactly what you're going to do. But whatever you do, at least give it your best effort and take the time to understand it. And you're either going to learn that A, you really like it, or B, you do not. So back to my career progression, I graduated college and I knew a couple things. One, I wanted to see different parts of the United States and actually the world. I've always been very curious about other cultures, other people. I think some of the most stimulating things in life are meeting different people from different places and creating common experiences with them. And that's that's the beauty of the world, and especially of the United States. Sorry, I apologize. But as I was graduating, I looked at a certain opportunity that I wasn't sure if the job itself was exactly what I wanted. However, it afforded me the opportunity to go live in New York City. And I had never been to New York City, seen it in movies and read about it. And of course, everyone knows New York, but I honestly had never been and was overwhelmed by the idea of it, but also liked the idea of the challenge of it all. In addition to that, as I mentioned, I had always had a real interest in international experiences and meeting people from overseas and even living overseas if I could. And so this job that I found was with, and this is going to sound really silly, but it's called Reinsurance, and it was a company out of Switzerland that actually provides insurance to insurance companies. Now, I knew nothing about insurance. I knew nothing about reinsurance. I didn't know up from down, but I knew that I wanted to live in a different place for a little bit to kind of grow my sense of the world, and B, eventually hopefully live overseas. And this job afforded me that opportunity. And so when I graduated, I accepted this job. I moved to New York City. It was overwhelming. It was daunting. It was everything you've seen, but it was also exciting, and it was an amazing challenge, and it was invigorating, just to figure out little things on the street, how to how to get from A to B, or how to figure out how to do anything. And being on your own was again, it was scary, but it was also very exciting. As it relates to the job part, I started at my job and started to learn what reinsurance was. And honestly, I would tell you that in the first 3 months, I had a weird feeling in my stomach that it wasn't the right fit. And that worried me because I go, gosh, I just moved all the way across the country to New York City. I'm in this big city. I don't know anyone. I've taken this job. What am I going to do? This is intimidating. If I don't do the right thing, I'm going to be without a job, and that's scary. I can't afford that. But nonetheless, I also was listening to my sense of okay, I'm gonna give it a shot, and I'm gonna make sure I understand what this is before I come to that conclusion. And so as I continued in that job over the months, I realized more and more and learned about it that it just wasn't the right fit for me. The people were great, the people were nice. I worked hard, but I didn't find my fire being lit. I wasn't ambitious about where it would take me. And another sort of test was, I've always said, look at someone who's been in that job, for pick a number, 20, 30 years, and is that someone you relate to? And there's no right and there's no wrong. It's totally individual. It's what you as a person look at and go, do I identify with that kind of person and feel like, gosh, that's someone like me that I would like to, if I'm lucky and I work hard, I could be in that position in 20 to 30 years. And I just didn't quite feel that camaraderie or that connection with those folks. So I actually, very delicately and being respectful of my position and my bosses and what they had expected of me, started to discuss with them the options of rotating into another department, but it was actually another company that was owned by the same conglomerate company. And so what that would allow me to do was leave, call it reinsurance, and go into what's called investment banking, where I'd learn about numbers, about finance, about financing, how companies work, about putting together companies, when companies go public, when they sell themselves, and thought I knew it was going to be a very tough road, but thought it would give me the toolkits that I would need to grow on to whatever it was I eventually did want to do. But it laid a foundation for understanding a lot of at least the finance world. And so ultimately I was able, very luckily, by being respectful and courteous and finding the right people and fulfilling obligations that I had, I was able to rotate into this investment banking role. I spent 3 years there, learning a lot about finance and wanted to make sure that I learned skills that were applicable in many areas. And I'd say that's another key lesson is early on in your career, the more you can learn as far as skills go that are applicable, no matter what you end up doing, the better. Because whether it's medicine, science, or even business, all the areas of business we talked about, there are definitely a lot of skills that are transferable. And if you can learn those early on, irrespective of the exact role, they're transferable and they're critical, and they'll just help you build and focus on whatever it is you do want to do. But ultimately in the investment banking, I realized I did not want to do that either. I learned it and said, gosh, okay. And a couple of things, I actually wanted to learn more about real estate at that point. I'd heard about some friends in real estate and what they were doing, and I got interested. And I also wanted to get back to California. So I moved back to California. I decided some additional education would be in my interest. So I pursued that. And while I was pursuing that additional education, I started to network and reach out to real estate people to understand, gosh, well, real estate's a big area. And there's a lot of different things to do in real estate. So where do I think I would fit in real estate? And I first started actually on the lending side, where most real estate, whether it's homes, whether it's buildings, whether it's hotels, you name it, every building you see, even land, usually has a loan from a bank or a group that's provided to help people buy and own those assets. So my first experience in real estate was on the lending side, and I worked for a group that was providing loans to individuals who would buy properties that maybe needed a little work, if you will, a little paint, a little refresh. These were all commercial properties, so they would be retail centers, they'd be hotels, they'd be office buildings, they'd be apartment buildings, and we would provide loans to them, and the people who we would provide loans to would buy these assets and spend time and money to make them better and improve them. And obviously through so doing would increase the value of those assets. And then ultimately obviously make the difference on the value of the property and the loan. And that was a great learning lesson for me. It was a great starting point. I did realize that eventually I thought, gosh, the people who are doing the work on the actual real estate and who own the real estate and who are our borrowers, they've got a really interesting position because they're out there having to create the value and make the changes, and it's risky, but it's also very interesting in all the different people you have to work with, from the city to engineers to design people to finance people to legal people. It was fascinating to me. Again, just being interested in people and different types of people. You were able to deal with all these different types of people, and you had to bring it all together, almost like conducting an orchestra. And so when I finally left my education, my secondary education, I decided to go be what's called the equity side of real estate, where you're the actual owner of this real estate. So rather than be the person who provides the loans, I said, I'm going to be the guy who needs the loans, and went into that role from what's called an institutional standpoint. And there's a lot of people out there who can do this on their own if they have enough money, and they'll raise money from their friends and their family and maybe buy a single building or a single house and rent it out or fix it up. But that same business plan is done at a very large scale by institutions. For example, all the big insurance companies and investment firms in the world, where they'll invest in things like stocks and bonds, they now all invest in real estate as well. So I went into that side of the business where it was what's called institutional real estate. And I ultimately went to go work for a company that would invest big sums of money into buying projects, big, 400 unit, 500 unit apartment buildings or hotels or office buildings, and own them, put money in them to fix them up, and either own them for the long term or sell them to somebody who wanted more of a long-term investment. And so I did that for a couple different shops. Again, I was just learning. I didn't know exactly where, but I was absorbing. I would say there's a lot of work that I had to do that wasn't what I thought I would be doing. And I learned so much from that side where it wasn't always, hey, I want to do this, and I did that. It was a lot of people saying, hey, Brent, we need you to do this over here. And it may not look like something you want to do, but you're going to learn a lot from it. And I would tell you that's an incredibly important lesson in doing a lot of the stuff that maybe doesn't look sexy, maybe it isn't glamorous, but really understanding, kind of putting your hands in the dirt and understanding the fundamentals of what, makes the business come together. It's immeasurable as far as the benefits to it. So I continued on that path. I was ultimately asked by a group in the Middle East, of all places, to come over and help them invest their money into US real estate. And so I did that for 7 years. That was in Abu Dhabi. And, we owned everything from the Chrysler building in New York City to apartment buildings in Los Angeles to things in Chicago. It was very interesting, very dynamic, everything from office to hotel to multifamily to retail. And so that was an amazing experience, and learned an amazing amount during that time. Eventually decided between my wife and I that I did, we did want to come back and be close to family and help as our parents age, and just have the connectivity with our community where we're from. And so moved back. And so where that leads me now is I was asked to come on board to this group that I mentioned, Logistics Property Company, which is a national development company that borrows money from overseas groups like where I used to work. And we build these logistics facilities across all of the United States. We buy the dirt, we do the development, we put up the building, we lease the building, and then we actually hold on to it so that we create what's called a portfolio of well-diversified buildings and assets. And so it's a growing company, and I had a lot of interest in helping a company grow. And like I said, I get to work with all different types of people all over the United States. And so it's an incredibly amazing and very lucky opportunity for me. So the required education for this position, it's very interesting, I'd say, in real estate. If you want to be a doctor, it's very specific. You have to go to medical school, you have to do this, you have to be certified. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to go to law school, you have to pass the bar. One of the beautiful things about real estate is, it's such a broad field, and there's so many different areas, whether it's residential or commercial, whether you're in sales, whether you're a broker, whether you're an owner, whether you're a lender. There's so many different areas. And I would say it really depends on what area you want to be part of that will determine exactly kind of what level of education you need. I would say that irrespective of where you are within the world of real estate, obviously, you need to graduate high school. As you start to deal more with the money side of real estate, being the investor or the lender, you definitely are going to need an undergraduate degree. I was very lucky and was allowed to attend and graduate from the University of California at Berkeley. I then went out in the world and as I mentioned earlier, worked in the field of finance. I didn't do real estate, but I did finance. And once you learn the building blocks of a lot of finance and how to take care of a balance sheet and what an income statement is and how to think about how people use money, how they borrow money, what the risk is, what the cost is, you can transfer a lot of that to different areas. And so for me particularly, I decided to go back to get a secondary degree. So I went to graduate school and earned what's called an MBA or a Master's of Business Administration. Again, I was fortunate to gain admittance and graduate from the University of California, Los Angeles. It's called the Anderson School of Business. And there were, I'd say, a decent amount of other classmates that I'm still very close to who were in my class that were in real estate or who wanted to go into real estate. I would say there are people I work with who do not have their MBA, so it's not essential per se. I would say it's very helpful, and it depends on what area you want to be in. I would say that as you look up the ranks of more senior leadership at any organization, there is definitely a trend that advanced degrees or secondary degrees are more common and being sought after, or any individual who would be considered for senior leadership roles, they want them to have a secondary degree. So again, that's very specific to what I do, but I have friends, colleagues in the real estate world, and again, it's such a broad group that some it's just undergrad degree, some it's advanced degree, but I would say there is an evolution and a trend within real estate as it has become a bit more institutionalized, if you will, that everyone for the most part will have an undergraduate degree. So the everyday work life in my current position and what happens and what type of technologies I utilize and kind of processes, I would tell you this is one of the reasons I really love real estate and B, my job, is because it's so different day to day that it always keeps me on my toes. And something that I may need to focus on one day could be completely different than the next day. And what I mean by that is in my role in looking at opportunities to invest the money that we raise from our institutional investors and be smart but responsible, and what we always use the term of what's called a fiduciary, and a fiduciary being somebody that acts on the behalf of another with the best of intent. So we take that incredibly seriously. We're basically acting on behalf of people who have committed money to us to invest and build these buildings and own these buildings, but we treat it like it's our own money because we take that very seriously. But in that role, one day I may be spending time on the phone with lawyers, having to negotiate legal documents. That afternoon, I could be out on a project site wearing a hard hat, talking to an engineer who's way smarter than me, but telling me something about the building. And I just need to know enough about understanding what the risk is and are we on track. And obviously we have experts who have more knowledge in that area. But you, again, going back to this idea of being the conductor of an orchestra, you have to bring all these pieces together and make sure that everybody is communicating to each other in a way that everybody understands. And so it's so broad and diverse, and that for me is very stimulating. And again, it's going back to the theme of I really enjoy different people, different personalities, different skill sets, and so it never gets boring because it's always an adventure. It's a challenge. It's a big challenge because it's also very unpredictable. and your phone could ring in the morning and suddenly you find yourself dealing with a problem that you didn't know about when you woke up that morning, but it's a problem and you have to figure it out. And maybe you don't know the answer, but you got to know, who do I call to get the answer and how do I get them involved? And so it's such a broad range of responsibility, and it's really about managing how you push these projects along, how you make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, how you almost treat every one of these projects and processes as if it's your own, feeling the responsibility of it and wanting the best outcome. And really that idea of taking ownership and getting the most efficient production, but also being very cognizant that there's a lot of people on this company, like I mentioned, a very broad range of people. And the most important part of any company is the people. And I have always said, you could work at a lot of different places, and there's places you could work and earn a lot of money, but you're going to hate the people. Well, I've always wanted, this is our lives. We spend most of our working or our waking life at our jobs. And so I've always wanted to work with good people, and that's very important to me. And so, you can make money with bad people, or you can make money with good people. And I'd rather make money with good people. So, being able to interact and solve problems with these people, this is sort of what I have to do on a day-to-day basis. Just to add to it, it also could be getting on an airplane and going to look at another site that we own in a different state, or meeting with an investor, or meeting with a lender who wants to provide a loan on a new project we're doing. And so it's very, very dynamic and always changing. So what someone new to the field and what they should expect when they first start is there's no exact roadmap. And feeling uncomfortable is natural, and that's the way you should feel. And it takes a lot of time to learn, and that's okay. And it's the willingness to learn and the patience, but also it's when people try to help who have been around, who are senior, it's taking them up on the opportunity. It's listening to people who have been around. And again, not everything everyone says is going to be the right answer for you, but you can decide that once you've heard them. And being able to listen to people and gather as much information as you can is so critical, because some of it's going to be a lot, well, all of it's going to be overwhelming. And this is irrespective of whatever career an individual decides to take. But just being thoughtful about and respectful of mentors, of learning, knowing that they don't know everything, humility, and being grateful for those who demonstrate the desire to help, because there are so many people out there who want to give back to help and are good people. And so taking them up on that offer, knowing that you don't know everything, having the patience to know you're not going to get it right, you're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, and that's great. That's part of it. The trick is you don't want to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, because then that'll start to be a problem. But if you learn from mistakes, then that's great. But being in a position where you're going to try and know that it may not work, people appreciate that everyone's comes in and they don't know something. They're coming out of school, they're fresh, and they want to help, and they're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. They just want to make sure that people are demonstrating an effort to learn and improve, and I think that's very essential in real estate. So the best part of my job and the worst part of my job, I'll give a couple answers. The 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 best part of my job is travel. The worst part of my job is travel. Honestly, I would say it's exciting to be able to go to different locations, meet different people, see different sites, see different locations, learn about different areas. That also, I would say, has its toll. I have a family and a young son, and I would very much like to be there with them more frequently. It's just part of the job, and thankfully I do get to be around most of the time, but I would like to be able to be around as much as I can. The other, I would say, best part of the job, again, and I've raised this a couple times, I'm very lucky and blessed to deal with a lot of different types of people. And I love the energy that I get from people who have different backgrounds, different views, different skill sets, and to think that everybody is coming together to produce a building, a project, a goal. It's fascinating, and I think it's beautiful in the sense that you don't necessarily have to agree with everyone at all times, or the people that you work with every day, or the people you'd want to go on vacation with per se, but you have a certain connectivity from just both a humanity and from wanting to work together and to achieve results, and to put forward the best product, and a level of respect for each other and respect each other's differences. And I love that dynamic element of what I get to do. And it's not just dealing with the same type of person over and over and over again every day. It's people from all different backgrounds, from all different types of experiences, but all wanting to achieve, what their vertical is, and figuring out how do we all get it done together. So I think that's one of the best things about my job. So what our company is looking for when we want to hire someone, from kind of a skills standpoint, or just a general personality standpoint, I'd say, first of all, we're seeing a great evolution in the world of organizations wanting to make sure that they bring on board people from all different backgrounds. And that's a big focus. We have what's called, and pretty much every organization these days, you see it, it's called DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it really isn't, it's not just lip service, it's not just a throwaway comment, but there is a genuine requirement, desire, focus to bring on board people that aren't just cookie cutter, the same people. And that can mean a lot of different things. It can be, different forms of, backgrounds. It can be different ethnicities. It can be different sexes. It can be whatever it is. But it's let's really get everyone out there and in here, because there's so much creative product that comes from that, and hearing those ideas and getting all of those skills. That's amazing. So as we think about it, we want a broad range of individuals. You have to have humility. I think our organization wants people to come in knowing that they're not the smartest person in the room, and that's okay. But you don't want attitude. You want someone who's willing to learn, someone who has honesty, integrity. All of these are very, very important. There are certain skills from a finance side, depending on your role, that are good to have, but not necessary. That, if someone doesn't understand certain financial models, that's okay. A lot of organizations will teach people that. It's really is about, have you demonstrated a commitment to learning whatever it is you want to learn in a way that we would look at the individual and say, well, this person may not know much about what we do, and that's fine, but they're also going to take it seriously to learn as we try to help them learn more about what we can do and what we do. And so those skills, obviously the ability to communicate is huge. I'd say that in any organization. Appreciate how essential communication is, whether that's in the written form or just the speaking form, how to speak with people, how to respect people, how to listen to people. All of these are, and again, this isn't just my organization. I'd say this is pretty broad, but it's all just as essential for the right individual to come into the role. And then once you're in the role, you'll learn more and more about exactly what we do and how we do it. And that's okay. And there's an understanding that, it's tough to go to school to learn exactly what we do on a day-to-day basis, but you want someone who understands math. You want someone who understands how to communicate. And again, more importantly, you really just want someone who's going to come in and be an honest, open, engaged individual. So if I had to go back into a time machine and talk to myself when I was in 9th grade, I would say two things. One, don't beat yourself up about the fact that I don't know exactly what it is that I want to do. And I would say when I was in 9th grade, that terrified me. I thought everybody is supposed to know. As I mentioned, my father was a doctor, and he always told me stories that he knew he wanted to be a doctor since he was a kid. And that terrified me because here I was in 9th grade and I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. I knew that there were things I didn't like and liked. And so I was able to, at least by process of elimination, move down. But it still terrified me. And I think that's okay. And I think that's part of it. And being flexible to understand that and not force yourself into something just because you feel you need to. Yes, you want to have progress, but if it's not the right thing, don't beat yourself up if it's not exactly the right thing, but give it a shot and learn what it is that you do or do not like, so that you can then learn and apply that and say, gosh, here's what I like, so I got to look for more of this and less of that. And I think that's a huge lesson learned, that if I were to go back into a time machine. And the other I would say is, again, I mentioned it earlier, but listen, take as much input in as you can. I think at that age, I thought, again, I knew enough about the world, and certain people may try to tell me about this and that, and I'm not going to listen to them because I don't care. I don't have the time, or I'm bored, or whatever. But taking the opportunity to absorb as much information as you can, and take experiences that other people have lived, and maybe it's not the same as yours, and maybe it's completely different than yours, and maybe you don't even agree with it, but you learn from it. And being able to have that information then allows you to decide, well, what do I agree with? What do I not agree with? If I hear 5 different people say something that worked for them, well, then that's something I should pay attention to. It's about finding those common denominators, about finding the consistency of what really takes to do something. And if people have made mistakes, gosh, maybe let them live that mistake and allow you to avoid it. But really taking the opportunity to listen to mentors, to folks who have been through things, and really just learn it, and know that, again, you don't have to agree with all of it, but you can make that decision, but it's worth it to at least listen. So any additional tips, advice, or resources that haven't been asked? I would just say, and I think every generation probably says this to the younger generation. When I was going through this, I didn't have the benefit of the internet, or the information, the accessibility of the information out there, which is just tremendous nowadays. And so the ability to, if you have interest, to just spend some time looking it up or tracking down people who do it and reaching out to those people. I think that is just an unbelievable resource. I would tell you honestly that 9/10 of the world, if not more, won't do it. And a lot of people won't take the initiative and they won't take the effort. And it's amazing the people who do just take the initiative and effort. It's not about being smarter than someone else sometimes. It's honestly about showing up, and it's about effort and taking the initiative. And so I would say, whatever career it is or whatever interest, taking the time to learn about it proactively, not just sitting back and waiting for someone to hold your hand and walk you through it, but taking the initiative to really understand it is going to put you light years ahead of so many other people, because most people are very reactive. And I'd say, some of the most successful people I've ever seen didn't go to the best colleges. They didn't, they weren't brain surgeons. They just had initiative. And I'd say that's a huge lesson that I would share.
Hello, this is Allan Vides. I am principal owner of Realty Executives, SFB Associates in the city of San Fernando. Thinking back in high school, I was probably like a lot of other kids, didn't have a set idea. I mean, of course, we heard, different fields of careers that was suggested by peers or family, parents specifically, what I should potentially be. But for me, it was more of a just kind of trying to find myself of what I wanted to do. I did get a little bit more direction once I got into my junior and senior year. Got involved into of doing some sales. Actually, I was introduced to sales, working with the Daily News as a part-time outside sales rep. And I think that kind of set me off on the direction that I ultimately continued through my career. Well, again, like I mentioned, I did work as an outside sales out of high school. Then after college, went to Cal State Northridge in CSUN in the city of Northridge. I was introduced to real estate appraisals, and just like having this idea of still continuing my sales. I always heard about real estate being a lucrative career, something that many people have done like wonderful things through the career of real estate. And I remember mentioning to my mom. My mom was a housekeeper for many years, and one of the ladies that she worked with in near Santa Monica. Her son had just started working with his best friend, whose mom was a residential appraiser. So my mom mentioned it to her boss and said, "Hey, like Allan, they had known me for many, many years, even when I was a young boy. They had, she mentioned to them that I was interested into getting into real estate, but didn't know which area of real estate to concentrate in. So my mom's boss mentioned to her, well, Allan should probably talk to my son Todd and see what him and Colin are doing, his best friend, and maybe it might be something that he may be interested in, and kind of go take a step by step with it. And that's actually what I did. I went and worked as a residential appraiser. So there's an educational piece to it that everyone has to start with, and now it's a lot easier, because with the introduction of Zoom meetings, Zoom classes, you can find a lot of different locations to to start the training and the learning piece of actually acquiring a real estate license. I think the name that I went through was Allied Business Schools, which they license real estate agents. They also license residential appraisers, contractors. Like if you wanted to get your general contractor's license, you can go through Allied. So they have a variety of different services or licenses, if you may will, to be able to continue your education. So I believe I went through Allied. And then as far as like the training, I think what helped me, well, a couple things. For me, actually, once I decided to leave the appraisal side and enter the real estate sales side, which is a completely different, two different styles of real estate, where the appraiser is more of a technical kind of behind the scenes, more number crunching. If you love numbers and you're good at math, that would be a field that was is very might be something you like. For myself, math was not my number one class that I loved to attend. I understood it, but once you got into the advanced stuff, it was not what I wanted to do. But it helped me understand a lot about valuations, how to look at a property from different angles, how to determine land value, which is huge, especially right now with prices just being so volatile. So it was a really good introduction in understanding how to value a piece of land or value a piece of property. And I think the sales side of it really took off when I aligned myself with a big company, that had a training program installed in their system, where you're able to understand not only the contracts. You may be good, at reading books and understanding literature and getting an understanding of what the laws are, which there's a lot of laws that you have to know in real estate, but understanding how to generate business and how to meet people and build relationships. And I think once I got into I started off in a smaller brokerage, which was good because it got me an introduction to how to just kind of get my feet wet and understand the real estate game, if I will. But I didn't really understand the actual business side of it until I joined a big company. And we're considered a franchise, so like a Realty Executives, but like a Century 21, like a Keller Williams, that have built-in training programs that really helped my business side of my career. Yeah, so the beauty of being in real estate is we're all considered independent contractors, right? So you're not necessarily an employee of a company. It's the opposite of corporate America, if I may will. We're more considered an entrepreneur, and really we design our own schedule. Now, there's a caveat to that, obviously, because everybody wants to have their own schedule or build out their schedule and come in as they please and not have anyone tell them what to do. But for myself, I still treat my business as an employee of my business. So the way I set up my schedule is as if I was working for a company, which I am technically, but no one's telling me I have to report at 8 o'clock and leave by 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. And every day it is different. Every day, depending if I have appointments, depending if I have client meetings or meeting with some of my real estate partners, it can start as early as 7 in the morning sometimes, but usually it starts about 8:30 more or less. I'll take my normal 12 o'clock lunch, and typically I'll be done by, let's say, 5, 6 o'clock. Sometimes, especially in the communities that I work with that are low to middle income, Latino, these are the areas that I work. A lot of people work till 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So usually, like, their free time is after they're finished working. 6:30, 7 o'clock. So there's times during the week that I come home at 8:30, my day's done 8:30 at the office, and I'll arrive, shortly thereafter. And then weekends as well. So today's Sunday. This is not necessarily work, that I'm doing, but it's not uncommon for me to be here on a Sunday at the office, writing up an offer for a potential buyer, or meeting with sellers at their place because they're looking to possibly relocate and sell. So it does vary, but I would say the way my schedule is written out, and it's not stuck on it 100%, but I try to stay as close to it as possible, is Monday through Saturday. Monday through Friday is 8 to 5, 8 to 6. And then Saturdays, I do a morning from like 10 to 2 o'clock. Those are my set hours every week. And then, but again, that might change day to day, week to week. So when someone that's new in the field, when they start off, first of all, they got to understand that this is going to be a marathon. It's not a sprint, 100-meter dash sprint. This is something that is a career, and it takes time to build. I know we get influenced a lot by what happens on TV, what we see on TV and hear, and we hear a lot of the get rich, strategies and getting in real estate. Now that YouTube is introduces people to real estate, you hear how a lot of people are starting to make money doing such things as wholesaling or investing and flipping and fix and flip. That's all is possible in this industry. However, if you take the path of starting a real estate career, I think it's for me, this started way back when I was I didn't realize this until a couple of years ago, but my career in real estate started as a young boy. And my mom, I mentioned earlier, cleaned houses, and she lived in a household with 2 other kids, husband and wife. And it was a 6-bedroom home in Encino, which is a pretty affluent neighborhood. And it was a huge mansion, and in my eyes, right? And I was like, I didn't know what was reality. I didn't know it was not rich. It wasn't, I thought it was mine. I had a big roof over my head, I had a pool, and, room full of toys. And we would take, skiing trips, to Yosemite in the winter. And, and it was amazing. My first, I would say 4, 5, 6 years of my life, that's what I experienced. But in reality, my mom was a live-in housekeeper. And, she was a nanny for the president of Universal Studios. And, his family, that was their house. And, when my mom came here as an immigrant from El Salvador, she worked there 6 days a week and had a day off on Sunday. And, every Sunday we would go visit my dad, who lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, who we shared in Los Feliz with some coworkers of his. And that was my young life. I mean, fast forward till about the age of 5, 6, my mom and dad were able to save up to be able to move us out. And my mom would only go work Monday through Friday to the same house that we used to live in. So they got a 1-bedroom home in Echo Park. Now that, was for me a transition, especially being so young, but it definitely got me to understand that, hey, if we want to have something bigger, want to have something that we can call our own, then it's going to take time. And this is the type of business that we're in. We help families that are similar to my family, who were able to save up money, and finally, fast forward, about they're 5 years later. I believe I was about 8 or 9. Yeah, I was about 9 years old. We were able to buy our first house. And so these are the type of relationships when I meet with someone for the first time, and they're excited, they want to be able to jump in and find something right away. I coach them on that, and I help mentor them, and I tell them, hey, that would be great. If obviously if we have all our ducks in order, then we can help you get into a home quickly. But it's more often than not, we have to take certain steps in order to get there. We have to get your pre-approval. We have to make sure all the finances are in place, make sure that you're comfortable making the payments that you want to pay on a month-to-month basis, because this is a long-term commitment. Buying a house is not something you get in quick and then get out quick. You know, there's investors that do that, but the majority of the time, the people that I meet with are people that are from my background, that have the same goals and dreams of becoming a homeowner in their lives. So that, I hope that answers your question. The best part, you know, reminds me of the time when I was, you know, that young boy that, you know, 9 years old, and my mom said, you know, hey, mijo, like we're leaving our neighborhood, you know, and at the time I didn't understand. I was confused, and you know, she said, hey, we're going to go for a drive and we want you to go look at our new place. And I was once again confused. And, you know, and it wasn't until we arrived to this house that my mom and dad said, this is your front yard, mijo. This is your bedroom. This is your backyard. We can finally get the dog that you've always wanted to get, you know? So for me, that was like, boom, like that was, it was a shift, you know, it was a breakthrough that I had in my life. And so did for my parents. So when I see this same type of emotion, when I hand over the keys to a family and I see the eyes of that kid, it reminds me of myself. And it reminds me that, you know, hard work pays off. And that part of it never gets old. That part of it is what continuously drives me to do better, provide more value for our clients, be able to educate them, be able to give them as much information as possible so that they can continue that legacy and their kids can also, you know, remember this process and encourage their families to also buy and be homeowners as well. The outlook for real estate is, you know, we're coming off, I believe, probably about a 10 to 12 year run where home values have continuously started to climb. You know, once we came out of 2008 recession, which I was a part of, I remember that real estate crash that happened very vividly. You know, a lot of people did get into a home and lost their homes, you know, and that was a very traumatic thing for a lot of people. But since about 2010, 11, we saw the, you know, properties and real estate begin to take a shift. So we're barely coming off of that, where we've seen prices, you know, continuously go up and up and up. And of course, it's no secret, there's inflation. A lot of changes, you know, have happened with COVID, and that's had an effect on real estate. But most of what's going to happen from here on out all depends on how strong the economy is. You know, right now, the biggest factor that's influencing real estate is interest rates. So, you know, interest rate is how the banks make, you know, ultimately money off of the services they provide. And in our industry, that's, you know, real estate loans, right? They're called mortgages. So mortgages, in order to get into a home these days, it's become more and more costly. And, you know, it's been hard for a lot of individuals compared to, like, let's say 1 year ago today, we were, the interest rate for a home mortgage was right around 3%. So the average median price in LA, you know, is about 675, 700. So, you know, it was a lot cheaper, I guess, in a sense, to purchase or acquire a loan for, let's say, 30 years, right? A 30-year fixed. So now the interest rate's hovering right around 6%. So 6.25. And it's doubled, more than doubled. So that also will increase how much you're paying month to month by double. So the outlook right now is that they probably won't be raising rates as significantly as they did, like, to say, like the last 5 to 6 months, which we saw it explode from 3 up to 6, 7% back in September. to now, we're, like I mentioned, around 6. I think we'll probably hover just below 6 for the next maybe 6 months. And then we'll see. I don't have a crystal ball. This is kind of the thing about real estate. It's like things can change drastically. Like the economy can improve drastically in the next 6 months. It may not, right? So people talk about, is this a recession? Are we going into recession? Are we already in? I mean, you hear about layoffs that are happening, like the Amazons and big companies that are laying off a lot of people. How's that going to affect people? And how's that going to affect people's interest as far as buying a home? That's to be determined. So I think for the next 6 months, I would say rates will maybe bounce around, maybe get down to like 5.5%. But probably be anywhere between 5.5% to 6%. And here in LA, there is a big population. LA is a very densely populated city, and so is the suburbs. The areas like in the San Fernando Valley is where I reside. There's a lot of people that live in the suburbs that need to be close to the city. So interest. I just did an open house. We listed a property about a week and a half ago. Did an open house. We had 40 people walk in through the open house and ultimately got 5 offers. So yeah, there is people that are coming up, that are looking to buy a home and are qualified, have a pre-approval ready in hand to be able to buy a home, which is always one of the first steps into getting pre-qualified to buy a home. And but that's where I think it's going to be at. And I think real estate is going to balance out. I think we still have a low inventory throughout much of LA County. So I think if demand even creeps up a little bit more, and let's say rates improve, they go down some and there's more demand, who knows? Maybe we'll see what we saw about a year ago, 2 years ago, where there's going to be more people in the market, ultimately having multiple offers and overbidding. Hopefully not. It was kind of wild, wild west the last 2 years after COVID, but it's kind of my outlook. Well, I think Realty Executives and actually my company as well, I'm also owner of Allan Vides Real Estate, the Allan Vides Real Estate team. Both sides, either Realty Executives or my own personal team. More than anything, we look for people that have good character, that understand, that things take time, and they understand that they have to dedicate themselves and be open to growing. So someone that's committed, especially wants to learn and wants to grow and wants to grow into a career and have a long career in real estate. I think those are important characteristics that I look for specifically, and understand that, hey, like it's not easy. You have to commit yourself. You got to be all in on wanting to develop and learn the skills, right? There's a lot of skills, especially like when it comes to negotiating, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to customer service, right? When it comes to, just being there at all, hours sometimes of the day for your client, because the client does come first. So for us, it's like, we want the people to understand, any individual that wants to come work for our company, we want them to understand that, this is a total teamwork, this is a total team atmosphere. And it's not about egos. It's not about personal agendas. It's about following the mission and the goal, the yearly goal that we set. We're very, every year at the beginning of the year, we're just wrapped up, setting our goals, doing our vision boards, doing a lot of things, having our mantra, setting up our mantra, our missions, and really understanding, like, what is it? What are we trying to achieve? And ultimately, as a company, we want to make this the best place to work at for all of our team members, to ultimately service and be able to have lifetime clients. And that's pretty much what our goal is here at Realty Executives and the Allan Vides team. What would I tell my ninth grade self? Taking it back to high school, seeing myself in, let's say, one of the classes that just happened to have something about careers and what you want to do. Let's say I was that person talking to that Allan Vides one-on-one, what would I tell him? Number one, write down your goals and not to be afraid to dream big, and really, not only write your goals, dream big, but try to immerse yourself in that career as much as possible, meaning attend educational events. So, that's the topic, attend. Maybe you have YouTube, look up, read, listen on the career that you want to take part in. And ultimately, like what I would tell Allan is really like visualize, see yourself in that career, see yourself helping that client out, really understanding their background, understanding what type of person and what's important for them, really empathize with who that person is, and as far as their career and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then ultimately, just ask yourself, like, is this something that I really ultimately can do? And if the answer is yes, like deep down inside, then ultimately go all in, like, and commit yourself to the life that you want to live. Yes, real estate is a great field. There's a lot of different fields that are very lucrative, and you can make a lot of money, and you can build wealth, right? But ultimately, do something that you feel it's not even a job. That for me to come in on a Sunday and meet with Nicole and be here on a Zoom meeting, right? It's something that excites me, right? Because I know, like, it's going to be giving back. And to me, that's one thing that I learned a long time ago. Like, there's a saying, the size of the hole you give through is the size of the hole that you receive through. And for me, like, such a valuable lesson that I learned. And anytime that I have an opportunity to give back, for example, we give back to Mend, which is a food bank, at least once a quarter. We go out and we distribute food to the community here in Pacoima, the local food bank. We also do a toy drive that we partner up with the LGBT community here locally in the San Fernando Valley. And we do a huge toy drive at the beginning of the school year. We do backpack giveaways, and we give backpacks full of notepads and pens and pencils and stuff. So, like, this is stuff that, like, I've always loved to do, is give back. So I believe a higher power rewards me, with, this success and people that, ultimately want to find a home and, have their first home. So I think for me is understanding your why, get an understanding of what, it's not, for me, it's not hard work. This is, to me, like, something that I love to do. So be sure that the career that you choose is something that you absolutely love to do. And did I say it? Don't forget to write your goals down and read them at least once a day. Any tips, resources, that I think I would recommend? Definitely be committed to, there's a saying that, we have here in our team is, we do, and we require everybody to be committed to that, is constant and never ending improvement. And a mentor told me this one time, and he said, you commit yourself to being better and growing, right? You're always you're gonna have things, you're gonna have resources, you're gonna have knowledge, right? You're gonna be a bigger person. You're gonna bring value to not only your team, but the people around you, your family, my wife, right? And it really is something that I would highly recommend that you get fully committed to. And one of the books that was introduced to me was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And one of his famous sayings is, whatever the mind can conceive and believe can ultimately achieve. And that is like 1,000% true. And I've duplicated that, multiple times over. And it starts with an idea. It starts with, believing, right, in yourself, and you have a plan. You have a definite plan and a definite purpose to achieve this goal. You burn the boat. It's all in. It's a done deal. So, for me, it's like when I start on a project, I'm seeing myself going through the project being completed. I'm, hearing my partners like excited. I'm visualizing the moment, we cash the checks. I'm visualizing all of that stuff, right? And more importantly, I also visualize how this potentially could change somebody else's life, and how it changes our life, right? How it changes our lifestyle, how it can create generational wealth. I don't come from generational wealth. I've had to work hard. My family, immigrants from El Salvador, like I mentioned to you previously. So definitely this is a resource that I believe is worth more than whatever you're going to pay, like 20,000 times over. So Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Study it, read it at least once a year. We do with our team, always at the beginning of the year. Helps ground us and sets us in alignment sets us up and to be aligned for the remainder of the year. So there you go.
My name is Rosa Garcia. I actually work with Division I Investment and Loan, and I am the president of my own real estate group called Garcia Real Estate Group. Actually, when I was in high school, I wanted to be an attorney. That was my initial passion. Was I wanted to be a lawyer. And when I was in school, I sort of geared towards that field. And when I applied for colleges, I applied for Cal State LA and was going to major in criminal justice. And then I went to intern for an aunt of mine, and that's how I got into real estate. So initially, I went to intern right out of high school with an aunt of mine who had been in the real estate industry for over 20 years. Then I went to school for a little bit and was going to pursue that lawyer journey, that attorney journey. And then I diverted into working for LA Unified School District. And I worked for the school district for 8 years and ended up working my way up to being the youngest payroll supervisor in charge of, I want to say it was over at the time, maybe 500 employees or more. And through that journey, I segued into real estate finance and then into the real estate career that I am now as an agent. So it was a long journey. So right now, because almost everyone's working from home, my work structure is extremely important. I'm extremely disciplined in starting work at a certain time, fulfilling tasks throughout the day. And because we do work a lot out in the field, I have to make sure that I do all of my office work, usually before noon, in order for me to be able to meet clients in the afternoon and fulfill all of my tasks before the end of the day. Because so many people rely on us responding and on us meeting them, we have to make sure that we're really disciplined and we fulfill all of our duties before the end of the day. So for me, a typical day is I check in with all of my clients, either via email or on the phone, usually before 10 a.m. And then between 10 a.m. and 12, I do a lot of my office work, following up with emails, with a lot of the office protocols. And then between 12 and 4, I actually physically go out and look at properties or meet with clients and colleagues. So to become a real estate agent, you have to, first off, go through real estate school. And people think it's long and convoluted, and it's really not. You have 2 ways of pursuing this. You can do it in person through an actual school, which is what I did and what I prefer because I love the one-on-one instruction. Or you can do it online through any accredited online school. Once you fulfill all of the required education requirements, it could take anywhere from, depending on the school you choose, 8 weeks to maybe 16 weeks. Once you fulfill all of the required education, then you have to take the California state exam. And then once you take the state exam and you pass, you get your real estate license. So when you start off in real estate, you can expect to be self-sufficient. Our field, you're considered an independent contractor. So even though you work for a company, if you work for like Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, the agency, or even on your own, you are 100% on your own in terms of an independent contractor. What that means is you set your schedule, you have to go ahead and find the clientele, you have to go ahead and do all of the work yourself. Even if you're a part of a team's going to give you sort of a structure and say, you're handling buyers' clients, or you're handling clients in this city, or you're handling these type of homes. So part of our profession is you're independent. You have to be able to set your schedule, be disciplined, make sure that you follow a certain protocol in terms of being able to succeed. And you're pretty much on your own with the support of a team. The best part of my job is the people. I do real estate, but we do facilitate probably one of the most important transactions that a person's ever going to make in their life. And you're changing lives. You're putting folks in homes, or you're helping them sell a home that they've owned for many, many years that's important to their family. So for me, it's the people, the connections, the folks that we meet, the lives that we change. That's the best part of my job and what I love the most. And the worst part of my job is honestly saying goodbye to some of these clients. Some of them end up moving to different states. Some of them end up just selling and, they don't want to own a home anymore, or, move to an apartment. So the people, the relationships, forging those and developing those are the best. And then saying goodbye to some of the folks are the worst. And also the changing in our environment, a lot of agents do change companies. So saying goodbye to my coworkers is also a sad thing in our industry, but we end up seeing each other in the future if they work for a different company. So it's really hard to predict the outlook of real estate. It's obviously financial based, and right now we're in a little bit of a kind of, I would say, market correction. Before COVID, no one really knew what was going to happen, and then when COVID hit, we were thinking, wow, the market's going to kind of, soften up a little bit and it's going to calm down. And it did quite the opposite, because the government did decrease the interest rates, which created a lot of purchasing power. So we were really, really, really busy up until the last couple of months when the interest rates went up. And when the interest rates went up, it did sort of slow down the purchasing capabilities of a lot of folks, and our market slowed down. So our market is it's like a wave. It goes up and down, and it goes based on where our financial situation is in the country. So it's extremely hard to predict. But what I do tell folks, if you're going to get into our industry, as long as you do good business, you will always have good business. So then you don't really have to predict where the market is, because you're always going to be busy. When I'm hiring someone, I do look at their resume, but that doesn't really hold a lot of weight for me personally. It's more meeting the person and having conversations with them like this. Because when I first got into the business, I had zero experience and I was given a chance. And my boss at the time was like, the reason why I gave you an opportunity was because you were excited. You said you were a hard worker. You said you were willing to try new things and learn and adapt. And that's what gave me, the green light to give you a chance. So I look for that in the same for anyone looking to get into the business. as long as you are excited, you're hungry, you're willing to learn, you're open to adapting. And more importantly, because of our business, you care about the customer. That's what I care about most, because everything else you can teach. I can teach you where things go, how to process a transaction, but I can't teach you how to be diligent, how to pay attention, how to adapt, and how to be good to our customers. I would tell ninth grade Rose, it's going to be okay. You're going to probably, change your mind on what you're going to want to be and where you're going to want to go. And that's okay. That's part of growing up. That's part of experiencing things as you become a young adult. At the end of the day, as long as you're happy with what you're doing good business, if that's the field you choose to get into, you're treating people good, you're being good to clients, to folks, you're always going to end up on your feet and you're going to be perfectly fine in the world. I would say one of the things that I can advise any young person or even any adult to do is to read. Reading expands your vocabulary. It puts you in places that you don't think you could go and you eventually can, or more importantly, expands your mind and broadens your horizons, as we say. I've always been a really big reader. I had a teacher named Mr. McLean in 8th grade who told me, I'm a Latina kid from Highland Park. And I was like, I don't think I can travel to these places, because he was a big traveler. And he's like, well, you will at some point, but you can travel there tomorrow. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Read a book. This book will, tell you what New York's about. This book will tell you, about the safaris in Africa, and your imagination will take you there. So I think it's really important to read for a lot of different reasons: expanding your vocabulary, expanding your imagination, setting goals for yourself that one day I'm going to go there, one day I'm going to do this. So to me, I think the power of books, especially in this digital world that we're in right now, I think is extremely important for young folks. Pick up a book, go to a park. If instead of, jumping on Instagram or any of those things, take 20, 30 minutes a day just to read something, and I promise you it'll change your life. Okay, PUC school students, I want you to dream big. I am a Latina woman from Highland Park, from LA Unified School Districts, and I would have never thought that I would be as successful as I am. So dream big. There are no boundaries. You can do anything. You can be anything. I promise you when I say that. Make sure you stay in school. That's extremely important. You respect and pay attention to your teachers. Trust me, at any given time, you may not think this, but as an adult, that's one thing that I'm grateful for, is for my teachers and everyone that has taught me things along the way. And again, I can never say this enough: dream big, do big things, be happy, and read those books.